Apple pie is an American icon that is super popular during the fall, but it is great to have any time of the year. It is the perfect thing to have after a savory dinner, and you can even eat it in the next morning for breakfast. It might not be healthy, but I don't think you can say that's a bad way to start the day. In this video, I'll be showing you how to make a super flaky pie crust and a delicious apple filling to go along with it. The secret to getting a flaky crust on your pie is going to be using cold ingredients. This means that we're going to have to prepare things ahead of time in order to give the ingredients the time they need to chill. So we're going to start by cubing up 450 grams or 4 8-ounce sticks of unsalted butter, and we're going to leave them to chill in the freezer overnight. Okay, now it's the next day, and you're going to add 600 grams of all-purpose flour that has ideally been chilling in the fridge overnight into a large food processor, followed by all of our frozen butter and 10 grams of salt. And then we will blend everything together until we can no longer see any big chunks of butter. And if you don't have a food processor, you can also use a pastry blender to incorporate all the ingredients as well. Once all the butter has been broken up, add 8 tablespoons of ice cold water and incorporate it into your dough. If your dough still isn't coming together after blending for a while, add an additional 1 or 2 tablespoons of water. To achieve maximum flakiness, we want to add the minimum amount of water necessary to form a dough. Continue to pulse until your dough starts to form into one big chunk, and at which point, empty out your dough into a large mixing bowl and use your hands to squeeze everything together into one big piece. Your dough should resemble something like wet sand. When you squeeze it together, it'll hold its shape. Once you've managed to gather everything into one piece, place your dough on a piece of plastic wrap and try to form it into an evenly shaped rectangle. Then wrap it up and leave your dough to chill in the fridge anywhere between 1 and 24 hours. Now for the filling, it really helps to have an apple peeler. I mean, seriously, this thing will change your life. It takes all the hard work out of making the filling. To use the apple peeler, just place the blossom end of the apple on the steak, crank the handle, and the skin and core will be removed, and you'll be left with sliced apples. Once your apple has been ran through the peeler, place your thumbs inside the hole where the core was and split it in half. For my pie, I used 5 Granny Smith and 3 Honeycrisp apples. Once all of your apples have been peeled, squeeze in the juice from half a lemon and give the bowl a mix. To your bowl, add 250 grams of sugar, 3 grams of cinnamon, and then start stirring everything using a spatula, and then realize that's not working too well and switch to using your hands. Once the cinnamon and sugar have been distributed evenly throughout the apples, place the bowl aside while we roll out the dough. Take your dough out from the fridge and cut it in a 40-60 split. As you can see here, I kind of messed up and cut it 50-50, so I just cut a small piece to make an adjustment. When you're done with that, put the smaller piece back in the fridge and flour your work surface and your dough. When you're rolling your dough, make sure to turn it 90 degrees every so often to make sure you're rolling it evenly. I had left my dough in the fridge overnight, so it took a little effort to get things started, but things got easier as the dough thinned out. Dust your dough and work surface with flour every so often to prevent things from sticking. Pay attention for any high spots in the dough and work those out as necessary. When you get towards the end of rolling your dough, you might notice some areas are a little misshaped. So just get a knife and square those areas off. And then move that dough to any areas where you feel that it's too thin. Then apply pressure to those areas so the two pieces stick together. Once you've reached the size to fit a 13-inch by 9-inch baking tray, you're going to want to fold your dough in half, and then in half again so you have a quarter, and this will make it easier to transfer into the baking sheet. Place the corner of the dough in the center of the baking sheet and unfold it. You'll need to do some manipulating to get the dough to fit properly in the pan. Make sure to go in the corners and stretch those areas well so that the dough is making solid contact with the baking sheet. Be gentle when stretching your dough because it can easily tear. Once you're satisfied with the fitment, you can optionally move your baking sheet to the fridge while you roll out the smaller piece of dough. For the smaller piece, you'll want to roll it out so its dimensions are about 15 by 11 inches. When you're done rolling your dough, bring your apples back out, and if you check the bottom, you'll see that the sugar has drawn out a lot of water from the apples. We are going to continue adding flour until most of this liquid has been absorbed. Start by adding 90 grams of flour and add an additional 30 grams or a quarter cup of flour at a time until all the liquid has been absorbed by the flour. So after 90 grams of flour, there's still a fair amount of liquid gathering at the bottom of the bowl, so I ended up having to add an additional 60 grams of flour until I got a thick, paste-like consistency that coated all of the apples. The exact amount of flour you'll need is going to depend on the amount of water in your apples, but you'll know that you added enough flour when the liquid is no longer pooling at the bottom of the bowl. Now it's time to put everything together. Take your baking sheet back out of the fridge and add in all of your apples in one even layer. Fold your top sheet of dough into quarters and lay it across the top of the apples. Go around the outside using your fingertips to stretch the dough into the edge of the pan. Go around with a pair of scissors and trim off any overhanging dough from the top sheet, and then make any necessary trimmings to the bottom sheet. Then go around the outside, rolling the bottom crust over the top crust. It doesn't really matter how it looks because it will all look great when it bakes. Cut some air vents into your pie so that way the steam has somewhere to go while it's baking. Separate an egg, discard the white, and add a small splash of milk to the yolk. Beat your egg and brush a light layer of your egg wash on the surface of the dough. Once everything has been covered with egg wash, dust your pie with a couple pinches of white sugar. Place your pie on the center rack of an oven preheated to 375 degrees using the convection setting if you have it. Bake your pie for around 60 minutes or until the top is golden brown. Our last step is going to be to make the icing. In a small bowl filled with 125 grams of powdered sugar, add a couple drops or an eighth teaspoon of vanilla extract, and add 1 small splash of milk or about a tablespoon. And if things are still too dry, add about a half a tablespoon of milk at a time until your icing comes together. You want to add just enough liquid so that your icing drips off your whisk. If you accidentally add too much milk, you can add additional powdered sugar until you reach the consistency shown here. So before you apply the icing to your pie, make sure your pie has cooled down to room temperature first. And then I like to drizzle on my icing and then brush it so it covers every surface of the pie. When you're done applying the icing, wait an hour or so before cutting the pie so the icing has time to set. To cut your pie, use a serrated knife and a sawing motion. This recipe makes 12 large portions, and if you want to bake this in a traditional 9-inch pie dish, just divide all the ingredient amounts by 2. If you've never tried it, apple pie goes really well with vanilla ice cream. I like to warm up my slice of pie in the microwave for about 25 seconds. It takes away some of the flakiness from the pie, but the combination of the hot pie with the cold ice cream is quite magical. So that's going to be it for me. If you give this recipe a try, please let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to see more videos like this one, please like, subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video.